This video is brought to you by Babbel. Start learning a new language today. Sign up through the link below to get 50% off. More on them in a bit. What does the discovery of a secret underground temple look like? You may conjure images of adventurous archaeologists whipping their way across a web of ancient clues, ambushed by incompetent swordsmen or goons with a dubious foreign accent. Well, think again, because the most incredible discoveries may be the result of something as mundane as a lawsuit over missed payments and a tax-related police raid. Such was the case for today's destination, the Temples of Humankind, the underground complex built by the spiritual community known as the Federation of Damanhur. Along the way, we will learn about the Damanhurians, their founder, and their beliefs and activities, which include time travel and singing plants. It's time to start our descent. On two separate occasions, in October 1991 and July 1992, the inhabitants of Vidraco, northern Italy, were woken up by the sound of police helicopters whirring above and the shouts and barks of canine units. The Italian tax police had descended in force over the quiet town located some 50 kilometers north of Turin. The northern Italian city is known worldwide as the hometown of Fiat cars and Juventus Football Club. But Turin and the surrounding areas had also showed an alarming concentration of occult activities and non-mainstream spiritual and religious groups. The tax police raids were investigating one such community, the Federation of Damanhur, not to be confused with the namesake location in Egypt. Having existed since the mid-70s, this community had rarely attracted the attention of authorities and the media, as we will learn later. But in early 1991, a former Damanhurian, Filippo Maria Cerruti, sued the community leader for a rather mundane affair. The leader was known under the assumed name of Falco Tarasco, which in Italian means hawk or falcon dandelion, but he had been born as Mr. Irowdy. According to Mr. Cerruti, he was due some late payments by Falco. As the case dragged on in court, Cerruti threatened to reveal the location of the secret underground temples that the Damanhurians had been building since the 1970s. That's when the authorities pricked up their ears, especially the magistrate for the area, Mr. Tinti. According to Cerruti, the subterranean structure was massive, carved into the Alps north of Turin. We can imagine Magistrate Tinti's thought process. Hang on, a giant temple dug in secret, presumably by hands, presumably by amateurs, under a mountain without a permit, without paying taxes? Tax dodging, combined with the risk of causing a landslide of epic proportions, was not going to stand on Tinti's watch. The magistrate asked tax police to organize two subsequent raids in the valley. In October of 1991, the inhabitants of Damanhur did not admit to the existence of their temple. In July of 92, Tinti threatened to blow up the side of a mountain with dynamite, and his bluff worked as the community revealed the entrance to their sanctum. And this is how these serious government officials were the first non-Damanhurians to lay their eyes on the Temples of Humankind. This structure comprises 8 halls which represent different stages of an ideal spiritual journey. They are arranged across 5 different levels, descending to 30 meters below ground. Some of the halls have ceilings over 7 meters high and are connected by hundreds of meters of corridors. They occupy a volume of more than 8,500 cubic meters, which qualifies the Temples of Humankind complex as the largest underground temple in the world. Besides the measurements, what strikes observers is the intricate artwork. Almost all walls, ceilings, and floors are covered in detailed murals, intricate mosaics, and highly symbolic sculptures. Light pours in through the Tiffany-style stained glass domes and is reflected by surfaces covered in mirrors and gold leaf. All this had been completed in secret by amateurs, just as Mr. Tinti had expected. And all this risked being destroyed. The Temples of Humankind were in blatant violation of zoning regulation, and in 1993 the council of nearby Vidraco ordered the temples to be demolished. But the Damanhurians were able to mobilize public opinion, and the order was delayed. In the meantime, an inspection by government engineers and surveyors found that the temples had not damaged the structural integrity of the mountain. If anything, they had somehow made it more stable. On top of that, the Department of Tourism for Turin's region, Piedmont, decreed that the temples were a significant work of art and would make for a successful tourist attraction. The press and government inspectors even went as far as describing the Temples of Humankind as the 8th wonder of the world. The first hall of the temples to be completed was the Blue Temple, dedicated to the concepts of pragmatic idealism and human potential. In other words, how humans have the potential to transform their ideas into concrete work or projects. The Blue Hall itself is a testament to that concept, as it was excavated from scratch with pickaxes and chisels by a group of amateur builders under the direction of Falco Tarasco, founder of Damanhur. The entrance to the Blue Hall is protected by a fake brick wall, which hides a door that can be opened via remote control. Inside, visitors can admire symbolic representations of the four elements on the walls: earth, water, air, and fire. Here and in other parts of the temple, the artwork appears quite complex and sophisticated to have been realized by amateur decorators. I should specify that over time, much of it has been updated, and it is rumored that further sections of the temples are hidden to the public as they are still undergoing development. An example of the incredibly detailed and intricate art featured inside the halls of Damanhur is the mosaic which covers the floor of the Blue Temple, a crowned nude lady, which represents the star tarot card, a symbol of pragmatic idealism. This mosaic conceals another very pragmatic, indeed practical element, a secret staircase leading to the other temples. The next in our tour is the Hall of Mirrors, which is also one of the closest to the surface. This hall is bathed in golden light streaming from the stained glass dome at the center of its ceiling and then reflected by the mirrors underneath. This hall is formally dedicated to the element of air, but there is also a strong symbology reminiscent of ancient sun cults. There are mosaics depicting the rituals of solstices and equinoxes, and the dome and mirrors themselves are a celebration of solar light. The glass dome also features a large falcon protecting the universe with its wings. This is a representation of the ancient Egyptian deity Horus. This is believed by the Damanhurians to symbolize the cosmic and solar force that will spark a spiritual reawakening of humankind in the third millennium. And on the marbled floor, one can also spot a dandelion. So the falcon and the dandelion, which you may remember, are the symbolic first and last names of the founder of Damanhur, Falco Tarasco. Falco was the leader of the community until 2013, the year of his death. He inaugurated the tradition for Damanhurians to adopt an animal first name and a botanical last name. Before being Falco, the founder was, as I mentioned, called Alberto Eraudi. Alberto was born on the 29th of May 1950 in a small town near Turin. At the age of 18, he moved to the big city, where he became fascinated with its occult milieu. During the late 1960s and early 1970s, he studied pranotherapy, becoming an accomplished practitioner. In simple terms, pranotherapy involves the healing of patients through the force of prana, a Sanskrit term which indicates the breath of life. In the same period, Alberto became a spiritualist medium and frequented Turin's Theosophical Society. This society had been founded in 1875 by spiritualist Helena Blavatsky and in the 20th century was closely associated with the New Age movement. Its members believe in the oneness of all life and the brotherhood of all people. They also believe in mystical abilities such as clairvoyance, telepathy, and travel on astral planes. In 1974, Roberto founded his own organization, the Horus Center, to continue the study and teaching of such beliefs. In the following years, Eraudi and 24 followers took steps to found their own independent community in the valley around Vidraco. They renamed their settlement after the ancient Egyptian city of Damanhur and formally inaugurated their community in December of 1979. From its inception, the formerly named Federation of Damanhur set itself apart from other New Age-inspired groups and hippie communes. First of all, they immediately started the construction of underground temples of humankind, a unique characteristic that immediately signaled that the Federation meant business. On a more institutional level, leader Alberto, now Falco, drafted a constitution suggesting that he regarded his community as an independent state with its own laws and even its own currency, the credito. The third element of distinction was Falco's pragmatic approach to leadership. He alternated periods in which he imposed a tight, efficient, military-like discipline over his followers. This was the case in the late 1970s and mid-1990s, when he felt Damanhurians needed to focus on profitable activities and grow the coffers of the community. In other stages, especially the 1980s, in order to encourage the recruitment of new members, Falco stimulated artistic creativity, spiritual development, and unusual pursuits such as the so-called Selfic art, music generated by plants and time travel. As we continue the exploration of the Temples of Humankind, we'll learn more about these practices. The next temple is the Hall of Water. But before we continue through the halls of Damanhur, consider how much easier it would be to start your own psychedelic pseudo-cult if you could speak multiple languages. And that's where today's sponsor, Babbel, comes in. There are lots of reasons you might need to learn a language: professional, personal, travel, lots and lots. Now, you might have had a crack at this already with some basic free apps from the App Store, but Babbel goes well beyond the basic. Indeed, it's the #1 language learning app in the world with 14 different languages currently available. So why is Babbel better than the rest? Well, with Babbel, you can count on people who have actual experience teaching the language rather than just relying on machine learning like other apps. It's also totally ad-free, so that means it's distraction-free. Possibly unlike this YouTube video. That way, you can just focus on the learning. It also focuses on language for real life, teaching you for situations you'll actually encounter. They've got an app as well, so it's just super easy to jump in and practice whenever you've got a down moment. And you know, those short little minutes of practice, they all add up. It's all very nicely designed and easy to use as well. So start learning a new language today with Babbel. Get 6 months for 50% off through the link below. And let's get back to today's video. The Hall of Water is a circular space dedicated to the wettest of the elements, to the feminine principle that generates life, and to the concepts of knowledge and memory. Like the previous temple, this hall is also topped by a stained glass dome. At the center of it, one can see a stylized rose surrounded by marine colors. Both elements recall the concept of motherhood. The rose is a symbol of the feminine principle, while the sea is considered to be the origin of all life on Earth. Below the dome, its patterns are reflected by a sphere placed on an altar. This is embedded in the bare rock, a design choice intended to honor Mother Earth. Other striking elements in this hall are the 4 golden snakes on the circular walls just beneath the dome. These snakes indicate the points where the synchronic lines come to the surface. The existence of these synchronic lines is one of the spiritual tenets of the Damanhurians, described by Falco in one of his books as a network of streaming energy that spills out over planet Earth and links up all worlds where life exists. Energy streams that catalyze the great forces of the cosmos. According to Falco, these lines fulfill a variety of functions. They make it possible to propagate ideas, information, thoughts, and moods, thus influencing all living creatures. On an even more esoteric level, synchronic lines can be used as highways during high-level astral travel and can be used to communicate with the rest of the universe. Lastly, these lines are the nervous system of planet Earth, considered a living being in its own right. The 4 golden snakes are surrounded by wall paintings covering the whole perimeter of the hall. These frescoes were executed directly by Falco Tarasco himself and are an expression of a style of his own invention, Selfic art. The word Selfic designates the mystical powers of the spiral form, which can be harnessed to enhance intelligence and understanding of the spiritual world. So Selfic paintings are works of art elaborating on the spiral form and its properties. Falco's Selfic paintings are believed by Damanhurians to provoke dreams and facilitate new insights. These pictures have their own aura, which affects the space around them. The magnitude and scope of the aura are directly influenced by the size of the painting. Selfic works of art can even interact with one another, enhancing their properties. This can be achieved through so-called Selfic cabins, sacred spaces containing at least 33 Selfic paintings. The cabin should also contain a Selfic machine, which is an object consisting of several metal spirals. There should also be a spheroself, or sphere filled with an alchemical liquid, within a wire spiral. Falco Tarasco was the only author of Selfic paintings, but shortly before his death in 2013, he instructed 4 Damanhurians to act as mediums and paint together, guided by his spirit after his death. These more recent Selfic paintings are signed by Alberto Araudi through his mediums. The 4th temple we're entering is the Hall of Metals. The main theme of this room is the triumph over human limitations in order to achieve spiritual evolution. This principle is key to the complex belief system of the Damanhurians, which is a syncretistic philosophy combining tenets from 4 main religious currents. These are the ancient Egyptian pantheon, Christic Celtic tradition, occultism combined with Theosophism, and New Age philosophy. Damanhurians are monotheistic, but believe that the one god can be accessed only through intermediate deities. 9 of these, the primeval deities, are self-generated. All the others have been created by humans, but have taken on an independent existence. The first human actually was one of these primeval deities who fell into exile in the material world. This first human was voluntarily followed by more deities and entities, angels, demons, and spirits who now live on our same plane of existence. You see, each of us can rely on an astral tank, or the repository of all knowledge accumulated by fellow beings throughout their history. Through particular techniques, the initiated can tap into this repository of information. They can even access the astral tanks of animals. That is why new members are encouraged to assume an animal name. The concept of spiritual evolution is expressed here in the Hall of Metals by the artwork which depicts the stages of human development. Each stage is linked to a specific metal according to alchemical principles, from the iron of early childhood to the gold of old age. The Iron Age of childhood, and especially the way children are educated, is very important to Damanhurians. Initially, babies and toddlers in Damanhur were looked after by several adults at once in a communal environment. In other words, young children were encouraged to bond with the community as a whole rather than just the parents. This practice changed over time as the Federation of Damanhur increased in membership. The responsibility of child rearing was shifted back to their parents in a more traditional way. The education of children is strictly non-gender specific, with boys and girls being introduced to the same subjects and activities and sometimes even encouraged to wear the same clothes. Children are expected to study both Damanhurian beliefs and more traditional subjects. As they grow older, they will be expected to find an occupation in the outside world to contribute financially to the welfare of the Federation. During the early 1990s, some legal custody battles created a controversy over whether Damanhur was a healthy environment for young children. In one of such cases, two experts appointed by the court concluded that Damanhur was more than an adequate milieu for rearing children. These custody hearings involved couples who had married traditionally before joining the Federation. Couples formed within Damanhur can apply for less traditional short-term marriage contracts. These agreements last 1, 2, or 3 years and can be renewed upon their expiration. Critics of the community have claimed that the short-term contracts are just a front for the practice of free love and promote the disintegration of traditional families. Tabloids and disgruntled members of the community have also claimed that Falco Tarasco used these contracts to basically dictate who could have sex with whom and when. The controversial aspects of Damanhur are not limited to romantic and sexual partnerships. Research carried out by the University of Turin in 2010 assessed the emotional and material costs for 18 members who decided to leave the Damanhur community. About half of these members took the community to court as the Federation kept hold of most of their wealth and possessions. In most cases, former Damanhurians reported that they had to rely on support from friends and relatives outside the community, otherwise their deconversion would have not been financially viable. When leaving Damanhur behind, there was also an emotional toll to pay, permanently breaking ties with other members, very often one's own parents. While these costs are common to many religious and social groups, researchers identified one very specific to Damanhur: a magico-spiritual cost. Half of the study participants reported being the object of spiritual sanctions for breaking their vows. More precisely, they were the targets of curses and death spells intended to annihilate their souls. Members did not suffer from any supernatural consequences, of course, but these threats were enough to instill them with feelings of anger and terror. Halfway through the descent through the Temples of Humankind, a visitor will encounter the Hell of Spheres. As the name suggests, this rectangular room contains 9 spheres infused in soft light and filled with alchemic liquids. The niches holding the spheres are divided by small columns, each holding a chalice reminiscent of the Holy Grail. Each sphere is said to be connected to 2 synchronic lines, making a total of 18. According to Falco Tarasco, this is the total number of lines present on the planet, making this hall the vital node of interchange for spiritual energies. The Hall of the Earth is next. The grandiose ceiling is decorated in colorful concentric circles supported by white ceramic columns. The symbology in this temple is complex and varied, but we can identify some key themes. The most obvious are the sun and the moon, visible at the entrance and on the opposite wall. They represent the masculine and feminine principles, respectively. The stained glass windows are dedicated to the forces of nature, embodied by the red lava of volcanoes and the greenery of wooded landscapes. As you may have already guessed, the animal and plant worlds are of great importance to Damanhur belief. Plants especially are said to have access to their own astral tank of knowledge. One of their skills, which is studied at Damanhur, is the ability to sing or play music. The process is part of regular demonstrations to visitors. There are even concerts in which humans and plants play together. Now, birch trees and orchids do not strum guitars, nor do they pluck violins, but they do release electromagnetic impulses which are converted into sound via amps and synthesizers. According to Damanhurians, these impulses are not random. They are a sentient response to external stimuli. The plants want to communicate with us, and through music, they express their feelings and even their taste. According to community members Owl and Spider, different plants play different genres. Chestnut trees love metal. And, well, how can you blame them? A final look at the Hall of the Earth will reveal how the paintings on the walls narrate the history of humankind, from the origin of the universe to the reunification with the divine principle that created it all. The cycle may hint at a non-linear concept of time. In fact, one of the best-guarded secrets of Damanhur is the ability to travel back in time. In his lifetime, Falco Tarasco claimed to hold the key to time travel technology. He even announced to selected followers that he intended to journey back to the lost city of Atlantis to resuscitate its culture. For this journey, he would bring along a painter, one Mr. Brero. According to the University of Turin study we mentioned earlier, the travel back in time was accepted as gospel truth by the vast majority of Damanhurians. Only a small number of skeptics dared to confront Mr. Brero about the adventure, to which he admitted, "Sure, we went on a journey, an imaginary journey." 8 steps connect the Hall of the Earth with the Hall of Victory, located in the deepest point of the temple complex. Here, the life and beauty of our planet are celebrated. The striking feature of this hall is the ceiling, on which thousands of fiber optic lights shine like stars, recreating constellations of a summer night in Atlantis approximately 22,000 years ago. The fiber optic lights are reflected by the shiny black granite on the floor, giving the impression of walking on the stars. The circular walls are entirely covered by a large fresco depicting a vision of humanity living in harmony with nature. This hall is dedicated to harmony between the divine forces of the planet, respect for all belief systems, peaceful relationships among all people. From the Hall of the Earth, visitor can also access the last of the Temples of Humankind, known as the Labyrinth due to its many intersecting corridors. While the decor in the other temples is hardly restrained, here the artwork is a wild assault on the eyes. On the walls and windows, artists have depicted hundreds of divine forces, from Norse gods such as Odin to the South Siberian Yagil Khan, a benevolent spirit who breathes life into children. The mirrors placed at either ends of the hall are a reminder that humans are a reflection of divinity, having descended from one of the primeval deities. As such, we humble human beings still possess a divine spark and therefore belong to the multicultural pantheon which populates this hall. The Labyrinth and the Hall of Victory conclude our exploration into the Temples of Humankind and into some of the best-known aspects of the Damanhurian doctrine, including those that may spark doubt, debate, and controversy. However, I hope I've stimulated enough your curiosity about the temples, which are a truly remarkable achievement of human ingenuity, engineering, and colourful art. If you want to learn more, head to thetemples.org and damanhur.org, and don't forget to let us know in the comments below if you've actually been there. Let me know below. And also, please do hit that like button while you're down there. Also, consider checking out our fantastic sponsor, Babbel. Link below, and thank you for watching.